Hey guys, welcome back to another review. Today we're talking about the Florida Project. The Florida Project was directed by Sean Baker and stars Willem Dafoe as Bobby, Brooklyn Prince as Mooney, Bria Venite as her mother Haley, and even Caleb Langer Jones ends up showing up in the movie as Jack. And he actually recently appeared in 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. And there was quite a few other people in the film. I'm not going to list everybody. As far as the plot goes, it takes place at Magic Castle, which is this motel in Florida, kind of near Disney World. It's an extended stay motel where a lot of lower income people will go to live or to stay or, basically rent it out on a week-to-week basis, as it seems. And it surrounds Mooney and her friends, and they are all very, very young, very, very young kids, probably around 6 years old or somewhere around there, and how they pass their time throughout this entire summer there in Florida between these couple different motels, the tourist areas around there. And you also get to see the relationship between Mooney and Haley, her mother, and kind of how they play into one another and how that develops over the course of the movie. That's all I'm going to really say about the plot. Let's jump into it. As far as the pros go, I really did like the aesthetic of the movie. I loved the color palette and how rich it was. I really think it was extremely pretty, and it was a standout point, the actual utilization of color in the movie. It definitely evoked the feelings that you're in Florida, and there are lots of swamps, there's lots of sunset, sunrise, lots of rain, lots of cool different color choices in terms of the actual motels themselves and the wardrobe and how that plays into the existing color of the environment, whether they be purples, oranges, reds, greens, blues. It's a very colorful movie, which I loved. The shot composition was very cool as well, and how they kind of bounce back and forth between these really beautiful fixed shots that were clearly set up very intentionally, and these more intimate handheld moments, which I thought really complemented each other and added some dynamic camera work to the story. As far as the direction and the writing goes, I did not see Sean Baker's movie in 2015 called Tangerine, which was shot almost entirely on an iPhone, and I heard very good things about it, but it doesn't appear to be unfounded, because if his style translates from that to this, he's definitely a very competent director. This film is very well constructed and well written. I think that the dialogue is very grounded and there is nothing fantastical about it. Also, the things that the groups of kids do and say would be exactly how you would think these groups of kids would act. It's interesting, and it makes me wonder how much of it was just kind of on the fly filming what these kids are saying and how much of it was legitimately scripted. Either way, I have to give props to these guys and how they captured it. This film lends us its story mostly through the eyes and the perspective of the main character, the main girl named Mooney, which is the daughter of Haley. This gives us the ability to really see the levity and the optimism in this really very actually dark story and dark reality that exists in their world. There is also a very direct symbol and motif to a helicopter, and it keeps reappearing, whether it be the physical imagery of it or the actual sound of it throughout the entire film. It's very over the head, and I can tell that this was a choice. At least it appears to be, and I think you guys will pick up on it when you see it, but I thought it was kind of cool. Along with that grounded and realistic dialogue, I think all the performances were fantastic and also felt very real and very grounded, and that everybody did a very good job. I especially thought Willem Dafoe's character was very endearing and probably the most relatable and the most normal out of the characters that exist. That's not a child or not somebody who's a little bit more out there. That gives you kind of a more outside, grounded perspective for the audience to kind of latch onto. But he did a very good job. I do believe that the mother's performance, Haley, by Bria Venite, I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong, was an absolute standout. I would have to watch it again to gauge exactly how I feel about this performance, but I would not be surprised at all if she was nominated for an Oscar, because I think it was fantastic, and I would expect to see her in a lot of things in the future, and I hope to. All the kids were genuinely great and felt very real and very authentic, which once again I think lends some props to be given to the director for capturing that and being able to take these very, very young kids and get these performances and get these things on screen. And once again leads me to wonder how much of it was scripted and how much of it was on the fly. As far as my cons with the movie go, while I loved the use of color, I do believe there was the stylistic choice that I did not like at all. And I'm not crazy. My buddy saw it too, and I even looked up a trailer afterward to see if it was there and it wasn't just the screen of the projector that we were watching it on. There was this look as though almost the entire film was a little bit out of focus, as though there was a filter that softened the edges in a way that it made it seem out of focus, and this was pretty consistent throughout almost the entire film. I don't know why they chose it. It took me a long time for my eyes to get used to it, and for me it was a distraction and took me out of the story. The pacing wasn't great. The film definitely took its time to kind of get the story up and off the ground, but after a little while it did start to pick up, and it finally was able to start to really grab my attention as an audience member. To go along with that pacing, this movie was not so much story-driven as it was character-driven. In order to accomplish that, I think in a film, you really need to have outstanding and extremely compelling characters, which most of the time that happened in this film. It just took a while for it to establish those characters and get us behind them and get us to like them. Also, on that note, although I love what it did to help us empathize with these people and especially the children, it's hard to get behind some of these characters just because of how rough and gruff that they are, and some of the decisions that they make, they just make you shake your head as an outsider. But I do think it does a good job of helping you empathize and understand their plight and their situation. A small nitpick that I have has to do with Willem Dafoe's character and how he worked with Caleb Landry, or Landry Jones's character, because Landry Jones is on screen for maybe 2 minutes in 2 separate scenes and appears to be directly related to Willem Dafoe, and also appears to only have been there to give us a little taste of what Willem Dafoe's background is. It just kind of made me wonder if Landry Jones's character was really necessary in the film at all, because he just wasn't really in it at all. Overall, I had a very good time with this very colorful movie. It is a heartfelt and tragic tale that does still have some large doses of levity and optimism because of the view we get of it through kind of this child perspective. By the end, it was pulling at my heartstrings and there were tears welling up in my eyes, and I think it accomplished its goals in doing that and giving us the ability to empathize with these characters, because at times this film can be very difficult to watch because of its dark thematic elements that are at play, and also because of that bizarre visual stylistic choice that they made. However, this movie is worth your time to peer into another walk of life, into a different world that many people don't see or don't have exposure to, and there's a lot of humanity here in this film, and I would recommend it. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed the review, leave a comment below. Let me know what you thought of it, if you have seen it, if you haven't seen it. What's the last film that kind of tugged at your heartstrings by the end and got maybe a couple tears welling up in there? And if you like my channel, please go ahead and subscribe and keep up to date with all the new reviews coming out. And as always, I will see you in the next review.